Hello, brothers and sisters. I want again to welcome all of you to this other important lesson. Remember, in this lesson, I want us to focus on interpreting errors, types of errors committed by interpreters. Sometimes, unknowingly or knowingly, interpreters make errors. So, what are some of these types of errors we are talking about, and how can we avoid such errors in future? Now, some of the types of errors, of course, committed by the interpreters during interpretation include the first one, the type of errors we talk about is miscue. And miscue, we say, is a deviation from the original text or source message. This is a very commonly committed error during interpretation by majority of the interpreters. Interpreters will come out interpreting their own message, deviating from the original message. You listen, or you see someone interpreting, at the same time listening with the speaker. You sympathize with the audience because the interpreters deviate from the original message to their own message. This one occurs especially in a situation whereby the interpreter have inadequate vocabularies. So, meaning to say that when it comes to those vocabularies that are mentioned, that the interpreters is unable to give out a constructive interpretation, the interpreter will always deviate from the original source message. So try to avoid this as an interpreter. The next type of interpreting errors committed by an interpreter is referred to as omissions. Omissions, we say, information contained in the source language that is left out in a target language. So some information from the source language, when it comes to giving out to a target language, some message is missing. So omission, you omit a word. So words are given by the speaker, but you decide not to use one or so given words. So in such like situations, we call it omission. So you omit a message. Remember, there are some words in spoken. When you omit, it does not make a meaning in the target language. Likewise, from the signed message to a voiced message. So if you omit some words, the message will not come out in a constructive way. So miscue and omissions are some of the type of errors that interpreters commit. The next error that an interpreter oftenly commit is known as substitution. You substitute the message with your own words. So in such like situation, we say information in the source language is replaced by information in the interpreting or interpretation that varies from the original speaker's intent. So when you substitute, when you insert your own information different from what the speaker is talking about, remember that's an error that we commit intentionally as interpreters, not because we have a choice, but because we are limited with vocabularies. That's why so oftenly I've talked about we practicing so oftenly so that we have the necessary skills to be able to carry out our interpretation in a more perfect way. The next error that is commonly committed by interpreters is known as additions. So what do we mean by this? Additions is information that has no relation to the source language message that is added to the target language message. Example, interpreters insertion of new information, false starts, irrelevant repetitions, or vocalized pauses. So all these ones are additions. So we are told that we as interpreters, we voice exactly what comes from the source language. I've seen scenarios whereby in an event, the person who was speaking said that Jesus falls for the 7th time, and an interpreter, because of lack of this, went ahead and corrected and said Jesus falls for the 3rd time. So that is insertion, addition of information that is not seen in a source language. So we should avoid such additions and sign exactly as it comes from the source language. The next error, of course, as committed by interpreters is intrusions. Intrusions, we mean inappropriate, unacceptable source language syntactic structures, of course, used in the target language message that results in transliteration rather than a true interpretation. So identified by their adherence to the source language, semantics and syntax, the utterance has no meaning in the target language. Just from the word intrusion, intruder. Intrusion means bringing words that are meaningless to the source language. So we should, as interpreters, avoid using such words or bringing intrusion to a source language that, of course, makes no meaning to a target language. The last error that interpreters commit is what we refer to as anomalies. And anomalies, we say that target language utterances that are meaningless or confused and that cannot be accounted for by another Miscue types. So utterances that do not make any meaning, interpreters should avoid using such vocabularies or words. So make sure you, as an interpreter, you focus to the source language and be able to translate to the target language the way it comes from a source language. So doing that will ensure that these simple errors committed by interpreters will be avoided in such like cases. So make sure you practice here and there so that you equip yourself with the necessary vocabularies to avoid this minor embarrassment during voicing or interpretation. See you in the next lesson.